Well, you know, it's like driving up there. And you guys will and then you put the can go and get out there and cut the off because it'll be very fast. Yep. You understand I won't stop this truck. You get right there, there's no more stop, there's more muscle, so you, I can't slow this right now. Right. It's right. But you're making it. So I get one of them. From technology, then I'm ready. Thank you. Why did I make that?
What do you think to get online? Use that person. Facebook again. You have to be on Facebook? No.
There is consumption. It's about, it runs right along
I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the North Huntington Township Board of Commissioners for Thursday, October 13, 2016 at 7:00 p.m. Roll call, Manager Shepherd.
Commissioner Harrell. Here. Commissioner Higas. Here. Commissioner Bertani. Here. Commissioner Gray. Here. Commissioner Facenda. Here. Commissioner Casera. Here. And Commissioner Martino.
Here. Everybody please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody wants to speak tonight, if you sign the book at the podium. Our first gentleman is Jason Trayers. Remember, this meeting is being recorded and video streamed. For the record, please state your name and address.
Jason Trayers, 790 Brownsville Road. Okay, thanks, guys.
Here in regards to commercial trucks parked in residential properties, I got a letter about mine, and actually made me kind of mad, since it is my livelihood, my line of work. And I went out by a realtor, started a mortgage process, and looked at a couple properties. But also, after I received the letter, I started noticing things around the township that I think should be a higher priority. To do this right, or penalizing a guy for trying to make a living, such as, not limited to, heroin problem, traffic, abandoned houses, empty land around Walmart, bridges that are closed, which a few people that from our area, they mentioned that, they want to be pouring out. I know my neighbors didn't make any complaints about my truck being parked there. I mean, I help them out, they have a mechanical issue or whatever, I'm a mechanic, so I used to pull on my truck to help them out. It's been sitting there idle for 10 weeks because I took a layoff to help out the young guys at work and family guys. So I'm single, I can afford unemployment. But I've gone back to work just this past Monday, so now it's just parked there pretty much overnight. I don't want my service truck parked somewhere that, I got thousands of dollars of my money invested in this truck, full wise. I don't want to park off-site. I don't want it broken into. If I take my tools in, I can do my job. See my driveway, I'm old, behind the hedges, right down here on one end. Street light right over it. I mean, it's, in the winter time I need to plug in. So it comes, I mean, that's where it's convenient. Plus, I feel that since this has been pretty much an unenforced ordinance in the past, changing it's going to have no effect on the township for very little. I mean, there's not a bunch of people sitting up here that bullshit. shit. We're going to spend $200,000 to buy one of these trucks as part of your driveway for all of it. My opinion, this has always been, always will be a working class township. It's always was farms, we raised up that way, came this way. And what's the difference between my truck, which is just a crane truck, next to somebody parking on a 40-foot RV in the driveway? I mean, it's the physical size of it. I don't know if that's the issue. But I'm sure if we look at like comparable communities, like ours, we come up with, we can get some sort of community or get some sort of conclusion that we can all rest easy. I mean, ever since I got my letter, I've been like a wreck because I'm worried about like, what am I going to do if I get rid of my truck? I mean, I work hard to get where I'm at. I didn't go to school. I learned all on the job. I was in my home. I mean, I'm at the highest ranks. I'm turning the field mechanic. That's the highest I can get my job. But I think we can all get through this shit. Excuse my language, but we get back to work, get on to the more pressing issues. Pretty much what I got. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Our next one is Bill Bessie. State your name and address for the record, please.
William S.A., 560 Oakhurst Drive, North Ellington. First of all, thank you, gentlemen, for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm here representing our neighborhood, which is Lincoln Point. We have an issue that's has not even come before the Planning Commission yet, but we're trying to be proactive. We had a neighborhood meeting last night, which was attended by almost every family. We have 22 homes that live on that in our plan. That plan was developed approximately 17, 18 years ago. And when it was built, the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Commission recommended, and they granted a variance for that road. According to our ordinances, no road should be steeper than 12%. And based on the calculations that we've recently had done, and the variance that was permitted when it was first built, our road is already 15%. So it's a rather steep road, curves. Our road department does an amazing job with the C's that people. So I just want to note that because they just do for what we're trying to do on that road is pretty incredible. The one thing is about the road department, the road is so steep, they actually have to back the salt trucks up the road in order to get traction. They can't go forward. So that would tell you, I think, the severity, the degree of the road. We're here trying to be proactive. Like I said, as we all know, St. Nikolai Acres is being developed, the lower portion of it, and there's also an upper portion of it. St. Nikolai Acres, the upper portion of it, based on topography, the upper portion cannot be attached to the lower portion as far as access goes. There is access for the upper portion onto Church Street. There is a easement or right-of-way, but I do not think that it is wide enough. Your ordinance is 50 feet, and I don't think it quite makes it. I don't know if it's 35 or 40 feet wide. Also, I'm not real sure if even if that was an option, based on topography, if they would be able to access that property that way. So that brings us to our problem. The proposed development is considering making access to this plan onto Oak Coast. My neighbors and I are not opposed to development. We understand that everybody has the right to develop their property. However, to add an intersection on the middle of a 15% grade is treacherous. There are no sidewalks there for our kids. Our kids walk up and down that road. If you check out the guardrail on Oakhurst, there's numerous bangs, dents from residents sliding off the road and hitting the guardrail. I think that it would be really, really a dangerous situation for us to have our children walking along that road. And it's one thing, we have 7 homes up there. But if you add, and the plans that we initially saw were 18 duplexes, which would be 36 units. Now, I was informed by the developer that that's not what they're planning now. But even say it's 18 homes, you now have 25 homes traveling that road and an intersection of a 15% grade. We're concerned about site distance, but primarily the safety of our kids. And I guess what we were asking, based on our meeting last night, is we're just trying to be proactive. Please consider our kids. And we're not asking, everybody, it's not that I'm not in my backyard. That's not the case. But this is a safety issue. I think there's a number of zoning and ordinances that would be violated if that was permitted. And there is no solution for our children walking along that road. And we really ask you to please consider not permitting anybody to access Oakhurst Drive on that steep grade. Thank you.
Thank you. Next gentleman, Zach Davies. Take the name and address for the record, please.
My name is Zach Davies, 14500 Echo Drive, North Huntington. I would just like to know, what is the township policy on drug testing for all township-owned and insured vehicles?
What we do here is we'll get everybody's input, and then the commissioners will have an opportunity to respond to all the citizens who speak. So.
Okay.
Okay, that's it for citizens input. First gentleman, Jason Fairs, talked about commercial car parking. Any commissioners have any thoughts?
Jason, can you come up, please? Well, I was going to ask him a question. That's fine. Okay. Jason, what's the tonnage on your vehicle? Do you know?
The door type is 33,000. That's the total gross weight.
When did you receive your letter?
9/21.
Jason, is that a single axle?
Correct. Single axle Freightliner with toll body.
Has anyone parked in your driveway just that one your work truck?
That's why, yeah, Big Brother's in it.
Andy, I wanted to ask you, is there any kind of, can we do this on a permit by home system or some kind of system to where we allow one truck per address or resident?
We can do whatever you want the ordinance to say. The resident ordinance in the zoning ordinance on page 8-30 says No commercial vehicles larger than 1 ton shall be parked in a residential area. Heavy trucks such as heavy trucks such as but not limited to tractors, tractor trailers, high lifts, and similar vehicles shall not be parked in residential districts except where they are being used as part of a construction project on a temporary basis. Now, you'll recall you heard from a gentleman at the July meeting who had a flatbed tow truck in his driveway. He lived on Clay Pike. That came to light because his next door neighbor had 4 tow trucks and was running a towing business out of his home. So we went after him, and he said, what about my next door neighbor? He has a tow truck. Well, you couldn't go after this one without going after that one. So we went after that one. He came in with 9 or 10 photos and said, I drove around the township, and here's all the trucks I saw. What are you doing about them? Well, we're citing them. So we're working down the list. You got to do what you feel is appropriate. When this ordinance was passed in 1991, that was the provision that was put in there. It's not a new enforcement issue. It's not something we've just decided to go after. I had a neighbor several years ago that brought home a dump truck with a lowboy trailer with a backhoe on it every single night, parked it on the street 2 doors down from me. I had another neighbor that brought home a tractor trailer at night and parked that around the corner from me. It's not something new. It's been in the ordinance for quite some time. But we tend to enforce things when we learn of them or when we get complaints about them. We're not out there combing every driveway of every street down the tonnage.
Can I add one thing, please? I live right down here. You drive past it every day. It's been there for 2 years. And now it's all of a sudden an issue. That's why I know my neighbors can complain. I talked to the guy that had a flatbed. I tracked down where it started from. And I mean, I understand what he said. You know, why me, why me? I'm not doing that. I don't want to complain on anybody else because they're my friends. Like, you know, we work together, do the same kind of work, whatever. But we're going to work. I mean,
I'm not saying you're right, I'm not saying you're wrong.
I
My job is to enforce the ordinance. If you want to change the ordinance, that's fine. Mike, you and I talked about this, and you had said, well, what if we had a permit system? To me, what a permit system does is place a lot of administrative load on my employees while allowing people to have trucks in their driveways. If you want to have trucks in the driveways, you might as well just abolish that piece of the ordinance and forget the permit system. I don't know what that does for us other than create more paperwork.
And Andy, you're right, because it's not a permit issue, it's a policy issue. You either want to regulate something or you don't. And if you don't, that's a decision the board needs to make, and the zoning ordinance can be amended. There's no requirement that you have this restriction in the regulation in the zoning ordinance. It was a policy decision, and I would hazard a guess, even though in 1991 the ordinance was readopted by North Huntington, I would bet that it was in there before that. It would probably go back well into the early to the mid 80s. It was probably put in there, no offense to the gentleman here who presents a very reasonable case, because there were problems that were happening throughout North Huntington Township and someone wanted to address them. You could change the restriction, you could modify it. It sounds like this gentleman still has a decent sized truck. I don't know all the tonnages, I apologize, I'd have to see it to get a feel for it. But
what it looks like is a tractor trailer. It's the front half.
Sure,
But it's got a full body on the back.
it's a pretty big truck.
It's a
Pretty big truck. Doing some serious work with a truck like that.
And it's off street.
Sure. So, I mean, that's something the board ultimately would have to make a decision on how you want to handle that. But Andy's right, it's a policy issue, it's not a permit issue, it's not a right or wrong issue. Zoning's not right or wrong. There's communities that don't have zoning. You don't have to have it. If you don't want it, you don't have it. That's the way it goes. I mean, there's communities that have much stricter zoning than North Huntington Township, much stricter. You probably find them maybe in other states, but it all comes down to policy. It's just what you think is right for the overall health of the community. And that's all zoning really does. It takes some rights away, but it protects rights. It's just a balancing act. You have to figure out where collectively you think that needs to be.
Jason, how long have you had that truck parked there?
2 years. 2 years.
2 years.
Jason, how big is your lot? Do you know?
Like,
Quarter acre, half acre?
it's under an acre.
I just wondered, I'm familiar with where it's parked, and I think it's pretty well hidden.
Yes, I mean, it's tucked off the road, I go behind the road hedges to hide it. You know, that's not good, but it's still under the street, like, I mean, I'm not, even my friends that we do similar to all different companies, they're all off street. It's not like they're in Camp Lot Park, right on the road, where you have to go around them.
And you do plug it in, so you don't have to let it sit there and idle all night long, or
No, sir,
it's
in
a
the
noise
winter,
problem?
in the winter time, it's a diesel, so it needs to be, it warms the oil up.
Yeah, but it's plugged in, it's not sitting out there growing.
No, it's just, it's plugged in, it's just a block heater.
We don't know diesels can stank and they can be noisy.
Yeah, it runs for 2 minutes after I get down to pull the plug over, I get shut off. I mean, it's not like it's something that I want sitting in my driveway, but it's the nature of the work.
You have the block here.
Yeah.
This is your lot, right? 790 Brownstown?
Correct.
Which one is it on the screen?
790. The dwelling's right smack in the middle of the screen.
On the left?
Yes, left side of Brownstown.
Can I say something?
I don't have,
As the board does, I mean, we're in the process of, I think, finally coming over the last hurdle on the zoning ordinance. Andy, I would say we're getting close to bringing that back to the commissioners. That would be an opportunity for you to, and you can do something interim if you'd like to, but, I would recommend looking at it in the overall context of the ordinance that the planning commission is going to put forward to you. And you can certainly, we're going to hold public hearings on that. You may want to make some changes to it at that point in time. Or you can do something in advance if you feel so. If not, you're going to see that draft in a reasonable period of time.
Can I say something? I'm in the same boat he is. I am a mechanic, have a truck. I had it parked up in Tom's Gun Room, the old Tom's Gun Room, and they got into it, got me for $2,900. So I said, hell, I'll park it at the house when these guys get me, you get me.
Andy, one time's not very reasonable as far as having, anything parking in the driveway, anything, as far as, truck or anything like that. Sometimes, small. I think if they have a single axle, and that's their livelihood, and they have one truck per household for their work purposes, I think, we should look at, revisiting the policy. I mean, there's a lot of people that have, and this is a big issue for you, and, it's probably a big headache and a big waste of time, so to speak.
It depends whether you want to look at commercial trucks sitting in your next door neighbor's driveway. It's really, like John said, it's a policy decision.
Almost everything we do in that zoning ordinance is a policy decision. It's a policy issue. I don't think they're a waste of times. They're difficult decisions because usually you have someone that wants to do something and someone who doesn't want them to do it. Again, you balance that out, but you can make that argument for almost anything. Home-based businesses, if someone runs, no offense, I don't mean this gentleman speaking here, but when you do it with the ordinance, you can pick any part of it apart and say, well, someone wants to run a business, what's the big deal? They're trying to survive. They want to run landscaping. They want to run a construction business. They want to have chickens, livestock. I mean, these issues have happened for years. Usually the regulations come from experience. Not always, but a lot of times that's where they come from. And that's just the general concept of zoning is separating out uses. A lot of times there's mixed use development, but North Huntington's not much of a mixed use community. It's segregated. Commercial, industrial, residential. It's just the way we've done things. We're not that different when it comes to suburban development. But I can guarantee you Andy deals with a lot of people that want to do a lot of things at their homes that they're not permitted to do under the ordinance.
Our motto is making new friends every day.
As you do.
Why would you got a friend in Pennsylvania?
Can I say something too, please?
You need to come up and state your name
Okay, do that.
and address.
I'm a friend of Jason.
My name is Brian Briggs. I live at 14053 Ridge Road. I own my own business too. I do not run out of my house. I can show you my card. I have a shop in Braddock because as a business owner, I can't stand crap in my yard. I don't want to see it. For me, to bring my truck home, nobody can see it. I don't have a neighbor that can see it. You can't see it from Ridge Road. You can see it with a helicopter. That's about it. The reason I bring the truck home is convenience, but it's also a money issue. Because for me to go to Braddock and then run to Greensburg is an hour out of my time. Okay, I understand the ordinance. I respect all that, and I respect Jason because if Jason had to park his at Beckwith and run all the way to Beckwith on a service call at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's going to cost 10 times. Going to cost us company time. This is not something that I think any of us enjoy looking at because I really don't frankly look at. I'm going to look at my truck, but it's a money issue also. Okay, and if I had neighbors complaining, I would respect that too. So if I could just suggest if you just change the ordinance to single axle or something like that, GVW is kind of irrelevant because you can't get anything bigger than 33,000 on a single axle. So I'm going to park a tandem down the street with a back on the back. That's unacceptable to me, especially on the street. You know, if you have 50 acres, that's a whole different. I have 2 acres, so I can park a tank back there and you never see it. But parking on the street, somebody has to stare at, drive around, and kids are climbing on it.
Not every day.
No, and you know, and I wouldn't want to see that either. You know, but I'm here just to support Jason, just to say that you know it's a money convenience, yes, but it's a money thing. You know, I'm up at 4:30 every morning, and I head off. I was in Campbell's today, and that's an hour drive. For me to go to my shop, pick up another truck, drive out of there is even longer on my time. So it's not something that we really enjoy or want to do. It's just a necessity thing, and you know we're all working and trying to make a living too. So just wanted to say that to you guys. Thank you.
I agree. I think we do need to revisit this and possibly look at, you know, changing or something to allow single axle in a residential area. Just one, I mean, 4 tow trucks is kind of extreme, I would say. I can understand the complaint there. You know, but I think it's definitely worth looking at. Because you are talking about people's livelihood. You know, I mean, I bring a work truck home every day too, parking in my truck. Granted, it's only a D350 van, but it's there. So, and that's convenience for me and convenience for the company I work for because I can leave straight from home. So I get it, guys. You know, just set up your trucks are bigger one. But I definitely feel it's definitely worth revisiting. And I think we can come up with some, you know, obviously tractor trailers and dump trucks with trailers and backhoes on are out of the question. But I think we can come up with a reasonable solution to this.
Yeah, now, or you want to wait till your ordinance in your line?
Well, the entire ordinance is just about complete. Like I said, they truly are getting close to the final hurdle on getting that done. It's been some time, but Andy's been working on it recently with some staff, outside assistants. It's something we can look at, and I would recommend, you know, that piece hasn't been in front of the planning commission, so that piece, if there's some change to it, would probably need to go in front of them for recommendation. Of course, they don't make the final decision, but they haven't seen that piece, so that's something that you would want to talk to them about. So we could put something together that they would at least consider, and you know, kind of see what happens with it.
Next gentleman was William Messing, discussed Oakhurst Drive. And do you have anything on that part of it already?
While we were talking, I measured Oakhurst, and it's about 15.5% slope. The waiver has come back to bite you. The problem is that there are 2 ways to get to that property between St. George Acres and Church Drive. As Mr. Essay said, one way is from Church Drive. It's a 40-foot wide swath of ground, and it's got a pretty severe cross slope. So by the time you level it out so that you can put in a road that's got the 2 gutters at the same elevation, you're almost at a retaining wall on the left side to hold up the hill. It's a one-to-one slope. So that doesn't seem like a very feasible way to get into it. In a two-dimensional view, it certainly looks like the way to get into this would be to do it from Oakhurst Drive. I'll give you a little annotation here if you'd like. I'm not sure I can do that. Yes, I can. This piece of ground right here is owned by the developer, and it touches Oakhurst, and it serves as a bridge between Oakhurst and this piece of ground like that. But there's no question that an intersection on a 15% slope is getting a little concerning. We've seen them in San Francisco. We've got steeper streets in the township, but they're ones that have been here for a long, long time. It's not anything that's happened in recent times since we've had a Salado. So, again, if this had maybe all been developed as part of the same plan, I don't think they'd have a leg to stand on because they bought into it. That they bought in thinking it was a closed-end cul-de-sac community. There's 5 houses, 6 houses on that steep part. And everything else down on the lower end. Is it 7?
Yeah.
And I understand their concern. Yeah, you're right, there's 7. It's not a great situation. And if you were to come up from the bottom piece of St. George Acres, as somebody else had suggested, that's twice as steep. That's a 33% slope to come up from that. So that doesn't work.
Mr. Blanco, could you show the bottom of Oakhurst where, what happens at the bottom of that steep hill?
Is it where the bend is?
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty steep bend.
It's a very, pretty sharp bend. There's very little sight distance. I'm sorry. I'm speaking out of turn. My house is the second one, the one furthest to the right.
I think at this point, there's nothing in front of the board. I know Mr. Essay's concern was just to let everybody be aware of it. If the event does come in officially, but at this point, there is nothing in front of the planning commission. At least the board has knowledge on these concerns.
I'm just thinking about when it goes to the planning commission before it comes here.
Yeah, and to be honest, we're not certain if it's going to come in or not. It may or it may not at this point. We'll see. We don't know.
We just wanted you to be aware, and that's all we asked for, so thank you. I think you summed it up perfectly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next gentleman talked about, David talked about drug policy.
Correct.
I would just answer that we don't have any policy related to vehicles or policies related to people. So our policy is that anybody with a CDL driver's license, of course, is tested, and all of our police department, those folks are all randomly tested. Every other township employee is subject to a pre-employment drug screen, and then also for cause if necessary. But we don't have anything related to the vehicles that's related to the people.
My concern is, you in the fire department, or any ambulance, anything like that, you go through all the courses, take your certified to drive and all that, and you can hold on drugs. You can hop in a fire engine, drive down the road, they're gonna be testing you. You get in a major accident, that's what they're gonna look for. I just went through all kinds of training about safety, about drug testing. If you're in a fire truck, technically, if you get in a wreck, and it's a reportable accident, DOT recommends you go for blood urine and wreck test. We have anything like that?
It's possible that the individual fire departments or rescue aid separate organizations have policies, but I can't speak to them. I can only speak to the township.
I think the township commissioners should get together and draft something up, because that's very important. We have a drug problem in the township.
Next item on the agenda, work session discussion topic.
Thank you. Just one item tonight in my report, that's the waste management contract. We have a discussion item for the board. You did receive a memo from Mike Turley, the assistant manager, recently concerning an outstanding issue we have with waste management concerning a partial situation that occurs on occasion related to overages and commercial dumpsters. It's not covered under the existing contract, and we'd like to get something, consider getting something in place with the goal of always having every charge that waste management has within the confines of our contract, not separately. I know you have the memo, but I'm going to ask Mike to give a brief kind of background on what this is about and then open it up to some discussion. Mike?
Thank you. As John said, it's not addressed in our contract, and Waste Management had approached us about issues with overage at commercial locations. I don't know how big the problem is, but it occurs with some regularity. Sometimes it's somewhat infrequent, sometimes it's more regular, but they're concerned. They have a system that they normally use that the issues for them are it slows the route down. The drivers have to get out and clean it up and pick the garbage, and it slows them down. It enables people to pay for less than what their garbage entails. In other words, they should be in a larger dumpster. And some other issues too. So their system is normally to give a warning and then to photograph it, and then there's an overage charge that they use, a $95 overage charge. That covers their administrative costs and things that are laid out in their paper that they gave us, extra time for collection and so forth. That seemed reasonable to us. We just want to make sure that we get these reports and that we know who's being charged and that it follows that procedure. So they'll essentially get a warning and then they get an overage charge. And we support that under those conditions that it's documented and that we're providing reports on that. Like I said, it's not in the agreement, so we need to address it in some manner as an addendum so that it falls within what would be an addendum agreement.
Okay, we'll move forward with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, the only question now, Mike, it has charges per incident. What are the charges? There's nothing written in there, or is that going to be
It's
like
in
the
a-
amount they have?
In the memo, I put it in the memo, it's $95.
Missed that.
There's general consensus. What we'll do is move forward with some sort of an amendment. We'll consult with solicitor. Maybe as simple as it's like a side letter that both organizations sign. We'll do that and bring it back to you. If it's not for next week, we'll bring it back for November after the solicitor reviews it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have tonight.
Okay, next item is planning and engineering conference, Mr. Blenda.
You knew this was going to happen. Sooner or later, the dam was going to break, and there was going to be a flood of applications. It will continue next month, too. We have 8 items before you tonight. The first one is at Norman Town Square, and a number of people over the years added pools, fences, sheds at the backs of their properties onto the hillside that is owned by the shopping center. And it was over the hillside and never really bothered anybody, but I guess the new owners, Norwood Colony Holding, are saying, hey, wait a minute. And they decided they don't really need the hillside. They said, you know what, it'd be easier to just give it to them. So they're trying to redraw the property line in the rear to allow all of those intrusions to become part of the residential lots that own the intrusions. So they are proposing to revise their rear property line up against 6 parcels. They're going to convey it to the people that own the residential lots. They've already discussed that, everybody's in agreement. So it's really just kind of making the property lines reflect reality in the field. No reason why that shouldn't be approved. Planning Commission recommends approval. You can see there the actual parcels that will be conveyed. Next item is the LPP subdivision, and these are 3 adjacent homes on Hometown Wendell Road. There was recently a death in one of the families, and an elderly gentleman passed away. And what they're trying to do, I think, is make the property lines a little more friendly to the homes that are out there in terms of how they use their yards. Because these people were related, there was really, everybody kind of did what they wanted, and there wasn't much of a concern. That now that they're looking at maybe selling that house, so they want to move that property line from here over to here. They want to make this property line a little more parallel to this guy's yard. So it's a boundary line adjustment. It doesn't really significantly affect anything. It's just cleaning up some details so they can prepare to sell the one home. Planning Commission recommends approval. No outside agency approval needed. There's shows you a little better graphically what's going on. The yellow pieces. The next property is the Kolsch plan. I'm not good at these Middle Eastern names. Kolsch? All right. And this is just a consolidation of an empty lot with a lot that has a residential dwelling on it. He owns both. He just wants to combine them to make one larger lot. No problem with that. It makes all the sense in the world. Planning Commission recommends approval of that. The next one is this Pizzali plan, and this is a rather strangely configured lot down here on Brownstown Road. But what they would like to do is add this bright yellow piece, which is currently part of the blue parcel, to the lighter yellow parcel that has frontage on Brownstown Road. It doesn't affect any easements or utilities or anything. It's a pretty simple matter. Planning Commission recommends approval of that. Next one is the Nagy plan. Carl Nagy owns about 11 acres on Wagner Drive. Several years ago, he subdivided off 2 parcels in the front with frontage on Wagner Drive. He would now like to do the same thing with a parcel on the opposite corner. This is the total piece of ground, and it's oriented the same way you're seeing it here on the subdivision plan. This proposed lot 4 does meet all the dimensional requirements. That's an R3 zoning district, so it's got the right frontage and so forth. We asked, and he agreed to provide a utility easement along this side that while he currently has an on-lot system, if he ever needs to tie into public sewers, that would give him a way to do that and not really interfere with the new lot 4. Probably the only twist to this is that because this is the 3rd lot he subdivided off, the fee in lieu provision kicks in. So we've talked to Dan Miller, and because this is so close to Indian Lake Park, it makes sense that the fee in lieu money for this lot, when a building is built, will go to Indian Lake. So that will be part of the resolution approving it. Next one is the guest plan, and this is a boundary line adjustment between 2 lots on Barnes Lake Road and Hometown Wendell Road. You're looking at the first submission of the plan here. It's been revised slightly, but Neil and Linda Guest own this home here where they live. They also own this home on the corner of Hometown Wendell and Barnes Lake Road, which they rent out. Currently, their property line is that red line. They have frontage on both Barnes Lake Road and on Hometown Wendell Road. But it seems that their driveway is not entirely on their lot, and it's kind of a messy situation. Again, they own both lots, they've used them as they wish, but now they're thinking, gee, someday we're going to sell one of those off, and we want the property lines to reflect how we use the lots. So they would like to redraw the boundary line between the 2 lots like that. It will eliminate the guest frontage on Hometown Wendell Road, make this a corner lot. But the second purpose of this is to provide about a 240 square foot easement at the corner of Hometown Wendell and Barnes Lake Road, which would accommodate a traffic signal mast for the traffic signal that PennDOT is requiring as part of the Tuscany Hills plan. The opposite corner is owned by Pasquarelli, so he can provide that. but we need to get an easement on this corner to provide for the pole. So it kills two birds with one stone, so to speak. They can do it all at one time. The Bittner plan is a fairly large parcel on Farview Drive. Driving past the front, you'd never know it, but there's this large tract of land in the back. The Bittners live here. Their son and daughter-in-law would like to build a home. So there's a paper road that's been there for years that nobody's ever utilized. They would like to utilize that access to get to a new lot to be created in the back. Probably the most interesting twist about this is that when Tuscan Hills is built out, they'll be able to have sanitary sewer service into Tuscan Hills. But right now, they need to proceed with an on-lot system, which they have tested adequately for if they want to build a house now. But that paperwork has to be approved by DEP in order for us to allow the subdivision. So I'm not sure if they may get sewer service before they get to the point of connecting the house, which would certainly save them a lot of money. But they would like to create a lot for the son and daughter to build a home, and they would need an on-lot septic permit. And the last one before you is, as St. George Acres is getting built out, we started looking at the storm sewers and the detention pond, and we found out that the detention pond, when it was built 20-some years ago, was actually built with a property line running right through the middle of it. So this is a plan to take the old detention pond lot, that red colored piece, and move the boundary line to here so that the pond is located entirely on its own lot and doesn't intrude into the adjacent property. At some point, this pond will be turned over to the township. We're thinking, boy, it sure makes sense to get that resolved now rather than later while everybody's at the table talking. So again, this is a boundary line adjustment, but it will make that detention pond parcel much bigger. And while there's an easement this way for storm sewer and sanitary sewer, it appears that the easier way to get to that pond will be from Lincoln Way up through that paper street. So that is proposed as the access point. I think that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No questions?
No questions? Thank you, sir. Anytime you have any further board comments?
Yes, Tony, I do. As many of the board members are aware, we have some vacancies in several boards that, I don't know, we need to, for them to operate at full level, there's some board members that need appointed for those boards, so I'd just like to let everybody know. I believe NHTMA has an opening. Parks and Recreational Board has an opening, and Zoning Hearing Board. Is that it, John?
I think those are the ones that are currently open. Yes. Yeah, it's certainly something the board on any of these vacancies can make the appointments at their discretion. Of course, they fill the unexpired term, and it's up to the board when you want to make your appointments on those. I think you have some letters of interest for various positions, so whenever you would like to discuss it and then move forward with it is, it's not an issue.
Okay. Need one more motion?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned at 7:14. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Appreciate it.
Sure.
We can't just change You go right ahead. You go right ahead.
So we have to, stroking it too much. So I'll have to start that over again. So I run my own business. I run my own business.